Hello and welcome to another episode of the podcast Little Girls Aren't Taught This. It's been a hot minute, I'm not going to lie. And I feel like in my podcasts over the last few months, all I've said is it's been a minute since I came on and done a podcast episode. But my life has been chaotic. Like, not chaotic, I think I just needed to really come back to self and just refocus on my own healing and just truly drop in and understand what direction I was heading in and what I wanted after everything with the move, after everything with going to Bali, the breakup. It was just everything. It was just super, super intense, and that commitment was like the most important thing to me, and the commitment to heal, the commitment to come back to myself. So I always say it's been a minute, and now I am back in England after Bali. I am just really feeling excited and just like a new woman who is ready to just do everything that I'm so passionate about doing. And I think the retreat was just such a perfect thing for me to realize what it is that I'm passionate about. So in this week's episode, I'm going to be talking about just a little decompression after the retreat and Bali, and just filling you in on how the retreat went, my reflections, my biggest takeaway, because the retreat was not only a space that I was facilitating, but the retreat also gave me so much in terms of transformation, in terms of healing, in terms of stepping into like my next phase and my power as a coach and as a woman. And the retreat was so symbolic for me because it really felt like closure and such a heavy, painful, turbulent period of my life. And it just felt nice to almost like end that and like see the fruits of your labor, as they say. So to see how much the work had paid off and how much I had actually seen through the commitment that I made when I got on that plane on January the 9th. So yeah, I'm just going to be sharing some insights and just chatting away about my life, really. So Bali, let's talk about Bali. Bali was unbelievable. As you know, I was only meant to be in Bali for 6 weeks, and I got there, and the first day I got there, I was like, okay, I'm not leaving in 6 weeks. Like this, I already feel like there's so much more I need to get from this island in the 6 weeks that I'm here, and I had no idea what that was. And this is another thing of like listening to your intuition. So my intuition was like, for so long, my intuition was like screaming at me about what I needed to do, and I was ignoring her. So October, November last year, my intuition was very strong. My intuition was screaming at me like, this is this decision that you need to make. This is what you need to do. You are so unhappy. And everything that I was trying to do to make that inner voice go away, it was not working. Everything that I was trying to do to get the opposite outcome of what my intuition was telling me and guiding me into, which was obviously that, America wasn't for me. I was trying my best to ignore that, and I was ignoring that for so long because it was too painful to listen to her. So it's still okay for you. I guess this is like a lesson and a reflection that sometimes it takes a while for you to listen to your intuition, and in the process of doing that, you may have to go against yourself because it's just too unbelievably difficult, and you just need space to process what's coming up before you actually make a decision. Now, we see a lot on Instagram and in the healing space around listen to your intuition, make moves, all of these different things. You can listen to your intuition, but you can still go against that whilst you're processing and understanding and coming to terms with what your intuition is telling you. That you don't just hear that inner voice one day and just follow that with immediate action, because sometimes what's being brought to you by your internal voice is so life-shattering and just devastating and painful and confusing. Like my inner voice was telling me things, and I remember just having like breakdowns in the car saying it, but it wasn't meant to be this way, and I don't understand what's going on, and there's no fucking lesson that's coming out of this, and why is this happening to me? So I think sometimes one of the things I learned from this whole process is sometimes you can feel angry at yourself, and that's okay. Sometimes you can feel angry at what's being presented to you. Sometimes you can want to resist what's being presented. It doesn't mean that you love yourself any less. It doesn't mean that you don't believe that you are worthy. It doesn't mean any of that stuff. It doesn't have to create a story. It doesn't have to turn into a big narrative. It just is what it is. And this is one of the things that I got from, closure around it just being what it is. And not needing to like attach a big story to it or create a big story to it. Like, that experience happened, it was painful, and at the time it just is what it is. Like, I wasn't ready to accept what I was hearing. So part of this whole journey for me is being reconnecting, because in that process of not listening to my intuition, there obviously was a disconnect that was happening, and there was a disconnect that was happening because it was too fucking painful to be in my body. So now I can talk about these things from a space of detachment. So at the time, this is another thing. So this podcast might not seem like I'm sitting breaking down points. I'm just literally sitting here like free flow and talking what's coming to mind. And as I'm talking, I'm like, lessons are coming up and I'm reflecting on things. So take what I'm saying, or like almost read between the lines of what I'm saying in this podcast, but it won't be me sitting down obviously going point number 1, point number 2, because this is just like a really intuitive episode of me talking and pressing record, which I love. And this is one of the reasons why I love my podcast, because I'm able to do this. So what was I saying before I digressed? So in the process of this whole journey, it's really been about me building that self-trust again. Because for me, ignoring my intuition meant that I was disconnecting from myself. And I was disconnecting from myself because to be connected to myself, to my body, was too painful. It was too painful to be in my body, to feel the hurt. It was too painful to just live every single day. So what I done was I disconnected and I disassociated from myself. So I can now reflect back on times over the last few months where I was disassociated in my days. So there was one point when it got really bad and my mental health was really bad, around like October last year. And I remember for like a week, I was just completely disassociated. I can't tell you what I was doing with my days. I was just numbing with like the TV, scrolling. I just felt like numb on the inside. I wasn't sleeping. I had anxiety. I woke up with constant dread. And that was too overwhelming for my nervous system. So what happened is I disassociated and I just disconnected. So when that happens, and obviously in that process, I'm ignoring what's coming up for me because it's too damn fucking difficult for me to deal with. So what I was doing was just numbing and avoiding that. Now, just because we do the self-love work and just because we do the healing, it doesn't mean that we stop doing these behaviours, because we're human at the end of the day. We can do all of the healing in the world. We can do all of the things. We're still going to get to a point where something comes and it's overwhelming for our nervous system. That for me was a fucking huge process of grieving, but I didn't realize I was in that until I started to come out of it. I was grieving, I was just completely numb. I was just unable to process what was happening because I didn't have the support to help me, and I felt so isolated, like I couldn't talk to anyone. And also, like, I didn't want to admit what was going on. I didn't want to admit it to myself, and I didn't want to admit it to anybody else. So in the process, a disconnect happens, which means I lost my self-trust. And again, that's okay. When you're going through something that's really painful, or when you're going through something that's really difficult, it's okay if you disconnect, and it's okay if you don't trust yourself. But I promise you 100% you're going to get that back if you commit to the healing work. And this is one of the things why, like, I'm telling you this backstory, because it almost adds a depth and a richness to when I keep talking about the commitment I made when I got on that plane, because this is what happens in life. Okay, we have two options, and this is what I was saying to the girls in the retreat. every time something happens to us, even if you didn't cause what happened, it's your responsibility to heal, because nobody's going to fucking come and save you. Nobody's going to help you unravel that trauma. Nobody's going to help you soften into your feminine. No one's going to help you open your heart and love again. That's your responsibility. And yet that might be shit if you've not caused it. If someone's come along and caused this pain, or an experience has come and caused this pain, but it's your responsibility. And then the question I always ask myself is, well, what's the alternative? So if I didn't get on that plane on January the 9th, what was the alternative? If I didn't commit to healing, what was the alternative? The alternative was that I stayed in a hypermasculine trauma response. I stayed closed off, and somebody else's trauma became my trauma. And then I embodied that, and I stayed disconnected in my life. And then from that, a whole new range of narratives and belief came about. I wouldn't love as much, I wouldn't feel as deeply, because I'd just be suppressing everything, shutting everything off. I'd be pretending that everything was fine. I'd be consistently ignoring my intuition. I wouldn't be trusting, I wouldn't be living life embodied, trusting myself, which is the essence of who I am and the essence of everything that I teach, and the essence of self-love. So for me, that was absolutely like a non-negotiable. And for me, every time I hit like a really, really low point in my life, and this is probably the most difficult point of my life before I went to Bali. Anytime I hit that, I always remember that commitment I made when I first started out in my healing journey. Like, I didn't have a fucking clue what I was doing. I wasn't spiritual. I didn't know anything. Mine was around body image, and I just remember how exhausted I was and how tired I was of constantly criticizing myself, and how much that was impacting my mental health and impacting my life and just changing who I was as a person. I was just coming inward, and I was really, really changing as a person. And I was tired of living my life that way. So I made a commitment, and I made a promise to myself that I would never get this low again. And that commitment was the thing that fueled my whole journey. Like, the woman I am today came from that commitment, because I never ever wanted to feel this way again. It was like the lowest of the low with myself, with how I viewed myself, with the way I was showing up for myself. Self-love wasn't even a thing for me. So that commitment has been something that's always remained like imprinted on my heart. And I've done it once before, so I know that I can do it again. And I've done it once before when I knew nothing, when I didn't even meditate or know what like crystals or self-love, or I didn't know any of that stuff. So I always think, if I'd done it then, I can do it now. So I always know I'm not one to romanticize this process or life in general. Life, if you listen to Jordan Peterson, he talks a lot. Life is about suffering. We have this ideology in our mind that life is a romanticization and it's happy and we should walk out every single day and it's sunshine and it's rainbows and things should flow with ease. Life is suffering. Life is difficult. The human experience is fucking difficult. And if you deny that, you actually deny the true reality of resistance. And then what you can almost do is block yourself from being able to have the tools to show up when things get really difficult. That resilience. So what's really important is knowing that, you know, I may get to points like this again, but I know that I'm committed to getting through them, because what's the alternative? And I give the girls a demo the other day, and I was saying, like, imagine you step forward or you step back. Like, you can't step to the side, you can't step around things, you can't default around the situation or around a traumatic experience or your emotion. All you can do is step forward into the face of it, or you step back and you suppress it. That's the only option that you have. So asking yourself, what is the alternative? And for me, that was the alternative, and that was not an alternative that I was willing to accept. So for me, getting on that plane on January the 9th was the beginning of that commitment, that I had no idea how I was going to come out the other side of this. And again, I think that's another big lesson I've got, is affectionate non-attachment, surrender. Like, I had to embody surrender, and I've had to embody that for so long. And again, that's not easy. Despite what anything is said on social media, that is not easy, because when you surrender, you're basically out of control, and you're just saying, okay, I don't have all the answers right now, and I'm just going to have to surrender into the process, which means that you may be faced with things as they're coming up in the moment. So you don't have time to preempt what's coming up. You don't have time to think about how you're going to react. You don't have time to, you can't sit and formulate a plan or think about what a month is going to look like down the line, because you don't know when you surrender. Sometimes when you're in the pit, the depth of your womanhood and the experience of humanness, you don't know what the next day is going to look like, what the next hour is going to look like. You might walk into a healing circle or a breathwork ceremony and not have a fucking clue what's going to come up in that, but you just know that you trust yourself enough. So I went to many healing things in Bali and had no fucking idea what was going to come up. But I knew in my body there was so much trauma that needed to come up. There was so much anger, there was so much hurt, there was so much pain around my heart. It was so closed off. I knew things were going to come up, but I knew that I'd have no control over what was going to come up. I just knew that I'd committed. I knew my boundaries. I knew how to come back and feel safe in my body. And that was the most important thing. So I went to these healing things, and I went to these breathwork sessions, Kundalini, meditation, water purifications, all of these different things. I just went to them with like an open mind and just the energy and the intention of just let me surrender into whatever comes up. And I was never forced, and so I was never coming out of a session thinking that should have came up or I wish that came up. I was just open, and I was like, my body is going to let things come up when she's ready. I'm not going to force her. I'm not going to walk into a breathwork session a week after being in Bali and just think I'm going to purge out all of the hurt that I've been experiencing, thinking that my mental health will all of a sudden be on top form. No, I knew it was going to take a process for my heart to peel back those layers and that trust to be built again, and for my intuition to start speaking to me again in order for me to trust her. I knew it was going to be a process and a relationship with self. And that is what self-love is. It's a relationship with self. And it's part of self-love for me is really facing those parts that I think, or we think as women, are unlovable, or those messy parts of ourselves where we fall apart and we just need somebody to be there and witness us when we're messy. When we lose somebody that we love, when our life feels like it's falling apart, when we don't have the answers, when something happens with our kids or your kids, I haven't got kids, when the love of your life hurts you, when you lose a job, when you lose a friend, whatever it is that comes up in this process, when we can just be in our mess and we can just be witnessed in that, like that is so beautiful. And that's a part of self-love. And to witness ourselves and to learn to love the unlovable parts of ourselves is self-love. So for me, I knew going into Bali, I was going to meet some parts of myself. I was going to meet my shadow. I knew that. I knew in part of healing the pain that had come from the relationship, I was going to have to like look at myself, look at my part, because it's always a part of others and self. So again, this was another really important lesson for me around, even when we're in situations where people and experiences are causing us pain, you know, like what's our part? And it's not about blaming and it's not about deflecting. So that energy is very different. It's not about me sitting in therapy and going, well, it's my fault because I allowed such and such, or I didn't listen to my intuition. It's looking at what parts of self suppressed or let certain behaviours in, or thought that certain things were acceptable, or didn't want to speak my truth. Or it's just about getting curious about self, because we all have a shadow. There's a part of us, every single part of us, everybody has a shadow. And the shadow part of you is the parts that you may hide in the shadows, the parts of you that you don't feel comfortable talking about to other people, the parts of you that make you feel uncomfortable, the parts of you that you don't like, rage, anger, all of these different emotions, jealousy. Maybe there's a part of you that's so fucking jealous. That can be your shadow coming out. So part of doing this healing work and really, really committing to it was going, okay, I'm going to have to face myself. I'm going to have to really face some uncomfortable parts of self. And I'm going to have to be aware that they're going to come up in sessions as well. They're going to come up in therapy. I'm going to be face to face with those in breathwork. It's not just about the experiences and other people and the pain or the hurt that we're feeling. It's about ourselves. But in doing that, when you face yourself, you really, really lean into that edge of self-love of, okay, this is parts that I've rejected or other people have rejected. How can I find acceptance in these parts? How can I love these parts of myself? How can I feel safe enough to let my shadow be seen so I can work through it? Because the more you reject your shadow, the more you're rejecting parts of yourself. Because in your wholeness, a part of that is having a shadow self. So that's truly like what self-love felt like and feels like for me. And that's why in like the retreat and in the work that I do, like I really love taking women to those edges, and I love taking women to those through the process of like trust, and over time I love taking women to those darkest parts of themselves and doing the work to illuminate that. Because when you work with me, I will always act as a mirror for you, but I will always let you know that it's so safe for you to bring these parts into the work. There's never any judgment. There's never any questioning. Like, it just, whatever comes up for you as a part of you, it just is. And we do the work to just help you illuminate those parts and help you just to bring the pieces back together so you can return home to yourself and your body and truly feel like you love yourself fully and truly and everything about you. So that was another really big lesson. And I think doing the work in Bali was intense. And then it was interesting because what happened is, so when I landed the first night or the day after, I just went out and I ended up at a bar, and there was these two local boys, and I just started crying. Because I was like, oh my God, I'm exactly where I've needed to be. Like, I've been wanting to go to Bali since 2020, but with the masters and then the move and all these different things, I couldn't go. So as soon as the opportunity came, I went to Bali, and I just remember sitting in this little restaurant just crying, just thinking like, this is where I need to be now, and it's causing pain and people don't understand it, and you know, I just don't feel like I need to overly justify the reason why I'm here. Like, this is what I need to do right now, and even if it's considered selfish and even if people don't understand that. So this was another lesson for me as well, as around sometimes the actions that we take, they do have detrimental consequences, and you're going to feel that. Again, this is something else that I've spoken about a lot, of like, you know, set your boundaries and do the things that you want to do and follow your intuition. Do all of that, but also know that that's going to have consequences, and you have to stand in the face of that and be strong in that, and that's not easy. And the more that you love yourself and the more that you've done the work around being your biggest support network and being your biggest love, literally the love of your own life, and accepting, the self-acceptance is huge, understanding that you are a flawed human being, you are a flawed woman, and knowing that sometimes you're gonna hurt people. It's very uncomfortable, but what it allows you to do is it allows you to make decisions and face the consequences, so you're not running away. It's not about making these decisions and running away from the consequences. It's about standing strong in that and saying like your truth of, no, I need to do this for me, and if that's the consequence, that's my consequence to deal with. And again, if you've listened to the Jordan Peterson episode that I done, you will know that that's one of the biggest takeaways I took, of like, if you speak your truth, whatever comes from that is your consequence to deal with. That's your life, that's your story, that's your path. Because what's the alternative? You don't speak your truth, and then you live for somebody else's. You live for somebody else's path or somebody else's vision, or you do something to make somebody else happy. And that's what we do as women, is we live our lives making other people happy. And the reality is, when we start to speak our truth, we feel like we're selfish, we feel like we're letting people down, we feel like we're doing the wrong thing, because we spend so long being taught to be complicit. We get taught from an early age to mold ourselves into what other people want, how to meet other people's needs, instead of being taught how to meet our own needs. So when you start going against that, it does feel very uncomfortable. But a part of leaning into that edge and starting to speak your truth and starting to live for yourself is to be able to face those consequences and know that people are going to find you selfish. Know that your actions may cause pain, your actions may have a ripple effect. But if you can stand firm and know that what you're doing is what you need to do, then that gives you like multiple deep permission slips to just lean into that and just go full in on that decision that you're making. So on that first night that I was there and I just got like really upset, I just had this thing of like, I need to stay for longer than 6 weeks, and my flight was booked to return. I didn't have any accommodation booked, and I remember texting my dad and saying like, I just feel like I'm gonna stay longer than 6 weeks, and he was like, you've only just got there, like, why are you always thinking about the next thing? And I was like, I've just got a feeling, and I followed that. And even when the flight come to go home, I didn't even give it a second thought. I was like, no, I need to be here for longer. One of the things, or the lessons I've realised, and one of the things I've realised about myself, is that I'm a woman who works in cycles. So we are cyclical beings as women. We work with the moon, we have cycles, you know, we work with all of these different like energies and parts. We're never just flat out the same. Life is cycles. Like, if you think about it, life is a cycle, isn't it? Nature goes in cycles, the weather goes in cycles, the moon, everything. I am somebody who, when I need to be somewhere, I will be very drawn to being there. And then when I'm done and I need to go. And it's really interesting. And I noticed this about Bali. I woke up one morning and it was like March, and I just had a voice that was like, I'm done. Everything I've got from this island, like, I'm done. Don't need to be here anymore. I've got everything and I'm ready for what's next. And then once I got that download, I had like itchy feet. Like, I wanted to move and I couldn't settle, and I couldn't wait to leave the island, and like I couldn't wait to get on to what was next. And upon reflection, that feels like a nice thing. Like, it's almost like you probably see this play out with my work as well. It's almost like you will see me go from one thing, and then when I'm done with that, I'll move on to the next thing. But it just organically happens as I'm growing. Like, as I'm growing and going on my journey, that will just automatically happen with me, almost like I cycle through things. And that's a really interesting thing that I've learned about myself. And I also think I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think it requires me to just listen and just be guided by intuition, and just trust that when that internal voice comes up of like, you're done, you've got everything that you need from this moment in your life, to just be okay with leaning into a new edge, or leaning into the possibility of something new around the corner, or what could possibly be next, and knowing that I don't need to have all the answers when I feel that as well. So again, that just feels like a big thing of surrender, and just like a big thing of just self-trust, knowing that that's how I work as a woman. So the healing in Bali was like really intense. So I done shamanic breathwork, I done sound healing, I done a static dance, I done a self-love workshop, which was shit actually. It was so shit. I was sitting there as a self-love coach thinking, oh my God, I can't believe we're talking about affirmations on a mirror as self-love. Like, this is wild. What else did I do? I done that shamanic breathwork was insane. I done water purifications. I was doing yoga. I was doing therapy every week. Now, don't get me wrong. You don't need to be doing this level of like intensive healing work, but Bali is the place to do that. Bali is the place where you will go and sit in a coffee shop and journal for hours. Bali is the place where you can go and do some crazy stuff and crazy workshops that you've never even heard of before. So it is the place that you will be able to... Oh, I done Kundalini as well, a 2-hour Kundalini breathwork session. And after every single one of these sessions, like, so much would be brought up in my body. It would then be a process of journaling, like processing all of these different things. And in between all of those sessions, like, so much was coming up. So this is the thing that I always say to my clients as well, is like, when you work with me, that is why I offer the support in between the sessions, and I offer such intensive support, which is one of the reasons why the price to work with me is the price that it is, because I am there with the intensive support, because I know that your shit is going to come up in between those sessions, and I'm there to coach you and support you through that. So for me, that was happening also, and it was just one thing after another and another and another, and I was just like, this is too fucking much. Like, this is literally overwhelming me to death. And I wasn't doing like all of these things like one after the other. This would be like maybe a week, and then I'd have therapy, and then I'd have like a 2-week break, and then I'd go to the shamanic breath work. But because I was in a space where I was building that self-trust again, my body was just in a space where it was like, okay, like all of this stuff is just going to come up, because there's space now for you to process. Like, I feel like I want to start bringing all of this stuff up, because I was opening up my body, and I was opening up that trauma and giving myself that space to process, and just like really, really being intentional around the things I was doing and the way I was showing up and how I was showing up for myself. That it meant even when I was not intentionally doing the work, it was always happening in the background, which was like really intense, but it was nice because I almost felt like I was able to move through a lot of stuff quite quick. And it was really, really healing, like writing letters, burning letters, spending a lot of time on my own, dancing, using dance as a form of healing, using ecstatic dance as a form of getting into the body, having fun, feeling love again, wanting to feel open. Like, it was just so nice because I'd felt so disconnected for so long. So when you're doing the work, it's also really important to like give yourself integration time and give yourself that time where you just sit and do nothing. Because when you're doing nothing, like when you're in the midst of unraveling something like super intense, there's always going to be processing and happen in the background, and you'll see that come up in dreams, you'll see that come up in your journaling, you'll see that come up where you may just disassociate and start going off into like experiences or replaying them, or you may just feel yourself like fading out, because processing is always happening. And I just think it's knowing that and like having compassion for self and not putting a lot of pressure, because I didn't have any pressure. I just went to what I was guided to go to. I went to a workshop around resetting the nervous system, which was fucking incredible. And I just would be in states of total relaxation that I've never felt before. After all of these workshops, I would just feel so like open, but so relaxed and just so connected to my body. And I learned so much in my own process of healing in Bali around holding space for other people, around being a coach, around spiritual practices, around working with the body. All of the stuff that I done in Bali was body work. It was therapy. That was the only talking work that I done. So I was having therapy every week. Everything else I was doing was around the body. And what I've realised is that really guided me into this beautiful space right now of me feeling guided to train in breathwork, train in biodynamic breathwork, which is working with trauma and energy within the body, energy blocks. I was umming and ahhing about that after I finished my master's. And this work in Bali has almost come full circle in me then facilitating in the retreat with Matt, who is trained in this form of breathwork, and just seeing the transformations that he can facilitate for the women, and how I was able to work with the energy of the women and just intuitively guide them as they were going with the flow of the breath, and ways that would release emotion, and certain places I could put my hands and how they would soften. And it was just a really, really beautiful experience. And I think I wouldn't have appreciated that, and I wouldn't have been the facilitator I was at that retreat if I hadn't have done that work in Bali, like without a doubt. It almost gives me chills to think about who I would have been on that retreat had I not have done the work, had I not have had my life fall apart, had I not committed to doing the work. I'm so grateful that all happened. Like, I'm so unbelievably thankful, because like I said before, what's the alternative? The alternative, I don't even want to think about who I would have been at that retreat. I wouldn't have been able to go into myself, so I wouldn't have been able to guide the women there. And I know that never would have happened because that's not who I am as a person. And that's definitely not who I am as a coach. I always lead by example because women pick up on that energy. And it's so crucial and important for me that women feel safe and women feel safe enough to open up to me. That's really crucial for me. So yeah, so Bali was lovely. And then towards the end, for like the last month or two, I had a little bit of a depression for like a month and a half. And that was really difficult, like really difficult. And it was difficult because I did not expect it. And I was in Bali and I was around my friends every day, and I just would wake up in the morning and feel so flat and nothing would make me feel better. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to sit in bed and I just wanted to numb again. I just wanted to be on my phone, watch TV, just ignore everyone, and I didn't want to be around anybody. And I remember I went to the gym and I was just trying so hard to make a session happen, but it just wasn't happening. And I felt so frustrated. And I must have been in the gym for like 40 minutes at this point and I'd done nothing, like fuck all. And I remember I just put the dumbbells down, walked out, got on my scooter and just started sobbing uncontrollably. And I was like, why is nothing making me feel better? Like, why is the gym not making me feel better? Why is the sunshine not making me feel better? Why are being around my friends not making me feel better? Like, what's happening? Because I felt so amazing after doing all of the work, and then I just kind of had this decline. And I remember going on to a therapy session and saying, I almost feel like I'm depressed. And she was like, what do you mean by almost feel? And I was like, well, and then I started reeling off all of these things. I was feeling like low in energy, like clouded thoughts, like nothing can make me feel happy, just like really low mood, don't feel like there's any point in anything, just feeling really negative. And she'd done an assessment on me and I scored really high on the assessment. And she was like, you saying it's almost like, but you're coming back with the symptoms of it, like it is a depression. And we just unpacked it and I was like, it's situational. Like, I know it's situational. I know it's because of all of these different things, and we explored that. But that was really interesting for me and totally unexpected. And upon reflection, and when I was talking to my therapist about it, I was saying it's kind of expected. And this is another thing that was like a massive lesson for me, is like when we go through something so painful, when we go through a grief, but then when we heal in that, and then we're reliving all of those experiences, and yes, we're moving through it all and we're processing it and we're coming back into the body and we're building trust. It's okay if there's a period where you just feel low as fuck and you're just like, I just don't feel like I want to do anything, because it was almost like the end of all that emotional turmoil. And I was just physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually tapped out. I was absolutely exhausted to my core after all of this work, after all of this turmoil, after the conversations, after therapy, after everything. I was just absolutely exhausted of being uncomfortable, of leaning into my edge, of speaking my truth. So that uncertainty, again, I didn't attach this big story to it. I didn't be like, oh my God, I'm depressed and this and that and make it a big story. It just was what it was for me. And I don't really know how to explain that in a way that, well, I mean, maybe you understand what I mean when I say this, but it's like, for me, I don't attach big stories to situations, because when I do that, and I notice this with women will feel something, something will come up in a session, and then they attach the story, and when they attach to the story and the narrative, they drop into the head and they start running away with the narrative. One of the things that was incredible in the retreat, and we were saying, me and Matt, to the women, is you can feel a feeling, but you don't have to attach any label to it. We don't have to get stuck in the story. We don't have to drop back up into the head and start explaining things. That feeling that you feel in your body, stay with it, work through that emotion, and then process and release that emotion as it's coming up. So that was massive for me as well, because I think, again, this is something I really lent into with that period where I felt like really low, was it just is. Like, I don't need to be like, oh, it's because of this and this and this and this. It was like, I was like waking up every single day, like, you know what? It is what it is. Today I feel low. Like, what can I do to make myself feel better? And when I left Bali is like that just kind of went. Like, when I got on that plane, that energy, I was just like, a few days leading up to going, actually, like the week before, I just felt light again. I just was looking forward to going, and I know a part of that is because I didn't have any purpose in the world waking up in Bali. I had no purpose. I was doing nothing. I wasn't stimulated. I wasn't working. I was doing therapy sessions, but not enough to make me feel like I was living my purpose. And that's so fucking crucial for me, is to feel like I'm having impact and I'm having purpose in my day. So when I wasn't doing that, oh God, that really made me feel depressed. I was like, I've just been in this space now for so long. I've come to the end of my healing. I've done everything that I needed to in Bali. Like, I'm ready to leave the island. And then this like depression came. But I moved out of that when I went to Rhodes, and I haven't felt that since, to be fair. So it's one of the other big things that I was toying with was like, how the fuck am I going to hold space in this retreat? And I was overwhelmed. I was thinking, I'm not going to be able to hold space for the girls. I haven't held in space in this capacity for so many months because I've been in Bali doing my own thing. I haven't held in person a space like this for so long because all of my programs are online. And I was like, I just don't even know like who I am, or because I'd done that much work. Another thing as well you kind of have to do is get reintroduced to yourself. So I'd be in therapy sessions and I'd be like, I don't know who I am anymore. I'd be like, I don't know who this Lydia is, because this is not the Lydia that got on the plane 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago. And that rapid transformation can freak you the fuck out and overwhelm you, for you to sit with yourself and be like, I don't have a fucking clue who I am. I don't know what I want. I don't know what direction I'm going in. I just don't know anything anymore. And I think sometimes we think that the healing pushes us closer to who we are, and it does. It exactly does that, and I know it does that. But sometimes when you're in the mix of that and you're doing that much work, that rapid, you have these moments when you're like, who am I? Like, what do I enjoy? Like, what do I love? Because I just don't know who I am anymore. So it's a part of the process as well, can be getting reintroduced to yourself. And it's like when you work with me for 6 months in one-on-one, as you're having these rapid transformations, a part of our work will be like, okay, let's do a reintroduction. Who are you? Who is this woman now standing before you? Because when you come into coaching with me, you don't have a fucking clue who you're going to come out as the other end. And I said this to the girls in the retreat, you have no idea what's waiting for you in these 5 days and who you're about to become on the other side of it if you commit to that. And again, that's something I embodied in Bali. So I had to get to know myself again. Like, what do I want to do? And then I was feeling called to go down all these different avenues, and I was so confused. So I was confused about how I would hold space. I was thinking I wouldn't be able to do it. And actually what I realised is, when you do this work, it's not about talking about it. It's not about doing all of the things. It's not about constantly going on about it. It's not about none of that. What it's about is giving yourself the time and space to embody the work. The transformation flows through you. You are the walking transformation, and you don't have to do anything other than show up as that woman who's been doing the work, embodying that fucking commitment that you've made. And I done that with every single cell in my body in the retreat, and it was absolutely beautiful. It blew my mind how that transformation just came through me without me having to think about it, without me having to make a song and dance about it, without me having to talk about everything that I'd done in healing in Bali, and I'd done this and all, I'd done this. No, it just was me. This new woman is just me, and she held space so embodied, so intuitively, so in tune with every single girl, in tune with the group as a whole. I didn't even plan the workshops to a T in the retreat. Like, I literally showed up to the retreat. I had the themes planned out of every day that I wanted to do, but I had no workshops planned. Matt came with an idea of what he wanted to do in the workshops. My role in those workshops was completely intuitive. because Matt was taking the lead on his 2 days, and the remainder of those days was intuitive. And I stood there in front of the girls and I was like, all of this is intuitive, you know. I was like, I've not planned any of this, and they were fucking blown away. But that takes you being fucking present and being able to really hold space. And I think I'm just so good at that because I embody everything I teach. So I'm so good at holding space for other women and being intuitive and guiding women into these places because I do that for myself. I've done that in Bali. Anything I've ever guided a woman into, I've done it myself. And I'm just so good at being able to notice those blind spots and notice when we need to pull back and have fun, and then notice when we can lean in a little bit more. Even when a woman says to me, I don't want to go there, I'm like, I know you've got more in you. Just let me hold that space. Just let me work with that energy, because I know there's an edge there that you're very, very close to. You think you're at it now, but you're not. And to just see all of the hard work come to fruition in the retreat, I was just, on the last night, I just cried and I was just so emotional. And I was like, I did it. Like, I really did it. And like, people know I was in Bali and it looked like I was having an amazing time, but nobody knows, and nobody needs to know, but nobody knows how hard the last few months have been for me. Nobody knows how much I've shown up for myself and I've done the work. And nobody knows how much of a big deal that retreat was for me. The retreat was just like, if I was to die tomorrow, I would just be, that would be my biggest achievement and my biggest accomplishment, because that just meant the world to me. And you know what was beautiful about the retreat? I didn't even overly advertise it. I didn't overly market it. I wasn't sending emails out. I wasn't even on Instagram really while I was in Bali. I would come off Instagram. I'd done the odd post about it. I remember actually thinking, I should probably post about the retreat because I'm taking the piss a little bit because I've still got spaces. Every single woman just came to me. Catherine signed up. She was one of the first, and then somebody else signed up. I remember when every single woman signed up. I remember where I was. I remember when 2 people signed up to the retreat. I think it was Karen and I think it was Kayla, and they signed up on the day after each other. And I remember it was just when I had just ended the relationship, and I remember just being fucking absolutely numb, just absolutely feeling like numb and heartbroken. And I woke up in the morning and someone had signed up, and then I went out with the girls and went to a static dance, and then I woke up the morning after and somebody else had signed up, and that was 2 spaces gone in less than 48 hours without me posting a single thing. And it just proved to me the power of the work that I do, and just that the women will sign up when they're ready. So for me to not overly market that or not be bombarding people with emails or doing all of these things was just incredible. Like, it was just amazing to have the turnout that I did, and the women were so perfect, and they were just the most incredible clients I could have wished for at that retreat. And it just felt so special, and it felt so sacred, and it felt so amazing to have Matt by my side for the 2 days, and to just be able to be intuitive and to just be so embodied in that space, and just be embodied in my fullness of who I am as Lydia without feeling the need to hide anything or be anything other than what I was. And there was some really special moments where I was just intuitively moving and just being present in the space that I created in the retreat, and the energy and the sacredness and the self-love and just the transformations I was witnessing. And there was moments where I just go outside and just move on my own, and there's one moment that will be forever in my mind of, it was sunny and we just finished the sex workshop and the energy was a little bit heavy, but I was feeling like really connected and grateful for my body, because I've been feeling not the best in my body the past few months, weeks. I haven't been feeling good. I haven't been feeling embodied. I've just been feeling just not great. And I remember I just went out and put the music on, and everyone was sitting outside, and you know, everyone was either sunbathing or chatting away, and I just went to the very front and I put my music on, and I just dropped in and I just moved for like 10 minutes, and I wasn't worried about anybody looking at me. I wasn't putting on a show or a performance. I wasn't being Lydia the coach, Lydia that you see on Instagram. I just had a moment with my body, and it was so beautiful. And it was so beautiful to do that and do it in front of all of these women who I'd witnessed in their moments, in their vulnerabilities, in their strength, in their courage. So for me to just have that moment, the sun was shining on my face, the ocean was there, the song is like really, really like connecting to like my heart, and it's just such a beautiful song that has like a real resonance with me, and I just moved, and it was so unbelievably beautiful. And to just feel, I think that moment was so big for me because it was really symbolic of, you know, you've done it, you've moved through that pain, your heart is open again, your energy is there, like your softness is there, and going forward you won't be this woman who is hyper independent, you won't be this woman trying to do all of the things, you won't be this woman who's so afraid of being in the feminine because it's seen as, you don't want people to use that against you. That you're a woman now who's in her softness and in her power, and who wants to love, and who wants to make an impact, and who wants to lead, and who wants to just show up and fucking make a move in this world and do it so unapologetically. And it was so beautiful. So the retreat for me was just honestly out of this world, and it was just amazing to just see how good I am at what I do again. It's just like that reconfirmation of like, okay, I've been through everything, and you know, now I'm back holding this space for women, and I'm so fucking good at what I do. And I was just like, in some of the workshops, I was like, I am not even in like a big-headed way, but I was just kept saying like, I can't believe that this is my job. And I was like, I am so good at what I do. It blows my mind, and it's so fucking effortless. It's so effortless when I do it. It's so effortless to curate these transformations with women. It's so effortless to teach about self-love. Excuse me. It's so effortless to embody these teachings. And it was just a special moment, the retreat. It was a real special moment. And then to see the other girls getting everything that I talk about was just, it's just the greatest gift in this world, to see women go from not feeling confident in themselves, and then on the last day, on the Power and Purpose Day, to see them getting pictures in the bikinis with the background, and you know, posting it on Instagram. And amazing to see women speaking about what they desire and what they want and communicating that. Amazing to see women go to their edges and break down. And people always laugh when I say that, but I'm like, no, it's good. Like, I want you to go to that edge because you're leaning in, you're allowing yourself to be seen, and that's so unbelievably brave and beautiful. And it's like, once you hit that edge, it's like, what's the alternative? Because you're not stepping back. And if you do step back, you're going to hear your inner voice screaming out at you. And it's not going to be easy to take that step back. But like, once you make that, and you're not abandoned, you're not judged, you're not criticized, you're not shamed, you're celebrated and you're loved, and you feel powerful and you feel confident, and you've got women who met you a matter of days ago, your biggest cheerleaders, and you can cry and people just love you and accept you and hold that space, and no one's given the answers. People are just holding you in that space. No one's saying anything. You're just being witnessed for the woman that you are. Oh my God, it's fucking priceless. It's an experience that every woman deserves in this lifetime, because it's one that you're gonna remember when you're on your fucking deathbed. And that sounds dramatic, but it's truly not. It's really, really not. And I think in all of that happens, you almost see that you do that for yourself. So what you do for another woman, you start to do for yourself, because you see yourself. So I always talk about this invisible thread. I kept saying to the women, like, this is what I talk about. Like, you are living it now. You look into another woman's eyes, you see yourself. You see her pain, you see your pain. You see her grief, you see your grief. You see her shame, you see your shame. Because we are all a mirror of each other. And there's a thread that bonds us all. So I don't have to have had the same experience as you, but that emotion and that shame, there's an experience in my life that triggers that in me. I know that space well. Even if I'm not in that space for the same reason, I know it well. And it's just a liberating, beautiful, cathartic space for women to be in, because we heal each other when we see each other, and when we see each other we see ourselves, and that is self-love. That's the essence of self-love. When you don't turn your back on another woman who's breaking down, you know that you're not going to turn your back on yourself, and that's when you start to lean into loving those unlovable parts of you. So group work for me going forward is going to be crucial, and also continuing with these retreats is going to be crucial, because I am the best out there at the self-love stuff, like, and I can openly say that with confidence. It's not arrogance, but I am one of the best coaches out there, one of the most qualified, one of the most embodied coaches out there when it comes to this type of stuff. And it's a gift. I've always said I feel like it's a gift. When you feel like you're doing your purpose, sometimes you have moments where you're like, I don't even know how I know that or where that's come from. And it's so fucking beautiful, and my wish is for you to find that. So please, whatever you feel like your purpose is in this life, just lean into that, just follow that, because you will be amazed at how good you are at that, at what you can give other people, whether that's a product, a service, whatever that is. Just you being in your purpose, the ripple effect that will have in this world, like, it's so beautiful. So yes, I loved everything about the retreat, and I'm still processing and just basking in everything that was. But I just want to end with a little journal entry that I wrote. So I guess I never knew what to expect when hosting a self-love retreat. What even is that? What do I want to gift the women when they leave the space with me? How will this experience shift and shape the women they become? I now know, no matter how hard I try to encapsulate that into a word or a paragraph, I will never do justice to what just occurred over the past 5 days. The energy, the intimate moments, the touch, the tears, the pause, the breath, the movement, the softness, the feminine essence, the love, the connection, the smiles that say, I know, the conversations, the light, the dark, the joy, the excitement, the edges, the wild woman, the permission, the shame, the breakthroughs, the self-love, the shadow, the trauma, the laughter, the doubt, the food, the meaning, the sisterhood, the invisible thread, the mirror, the sacredness, the altar, the power of being seen by self and others. Moments in time that occurred in the safety of our self-love villa. Moments that unfolded the more we dropped into ourselves and felt held by the women around us. With each tear, each breakthrough, each breakdown, we slowly peel back the layers, giving space to the resonance of I see you, which means I see myself. Women are so fragmented and disconnected from themselves. They spend so much time disassociating from the pain and the discomfort of being a woman, including all the experiences that brings. Thinking numbing and suppressing is the option that makes them strong and fearless. Yet behind that lies a fear so deep it's etched into every single cell of their body. A fear of self. A fear that if they lean into their mess, people will only abandon them. A fear that if they let it all out, it may never stop. So they disconnect from their internal world because they are so afraid of what lies within it. Permission slips are temporary. Self-love is surface level. And feeling powerful is situational, something often enhanced by external circumstances. Confidence, feeling like self-love, makes women feel like they are shining when the reality is they are masking from self. This retreat has shown women that everything starts and ends with them. How to harness the divine power that comes from your pussy through your soul, out your fingertips like honey. Real permission slips, real fucking edges, life-changing self-love. And a power that they can access and activate at any given moment, even in the midst of being cracked wide open. So beautiful. So I am going to end it on that, because I just think that is the perfect way to end this episode. And thank you so much for listening. If you have any feedback, please message me on Instagram, selflove.lydia, or please leave me a review if you enjoyed. In the show notes, I am going to put the link to my UK self-love retreat. The waitlist is open. I am just currently trying to find a venue that will be happening September, October time. And if you are interested in working with me, I am taking clients on in a coaching capacity for 3 months. So women who want to learn to cultivate a deep self-love. And my niche areas are body image, trauma, self-love, the feminine divine, the embodiment of self-love, the deep work. That is what I do, and that is what I am very good at. So if you would like to work with me, please reach out to me on Instagram, selflove.lydia. And on that note, I am going to go. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for being here. See you next week.